fuel injection is great until you need to change a fuel pump. So today I'm going to show you how to do that. Hello my friends, and welcome to Tom's Tinkering and Adventures. Today we're going to change a fuel pump. In this case it's going to be on my 2008 Husqvarna TE450, but this is going to be similar for almost any fuel injected dirt bike or quad, and maybe even possibly street bikes. In my case, on this motorcycle, you cannot purchase just the fuel pump. You have to purchase the entire fuel pump assembly, and I'll show you that as soon as we get this tank and seat and tank and all the stuff off of here. But that unit is about $500, so it's prohibitively expensive. So what you can do is research the model of motorcycle that you have and see if there is an aftermarket version available. For me, this is what I ended up getting. Now this I purchased off of online, I think off of eBay. Manufacturer is Kemso, but there's a whole bunch of them, likely overseas, which who knows what's actually in the bike. Well, actually I do know what's in the bike. I believe one of these is in there because I changed it out a couple years ago. But there's a few things that you have to do if it's your original fuel pump in there. So I'll explain those as I get to that. Anyway, you can purchase these online. I think I paid about $20 for this. So for 20 bucks, I could change this thing out, let's see, 500 divided by 20 is what, 25 times? Now it's not too hard to do, and the first time I had a failure on this, I was in the desert and I was able to get from where I was back to camp. So I would suggest you make yourself familiar with that. If you have a fuel injected dirt bike or quad or something and you're going to be by yourself or even just with a couple people, make sure you have the tools that you could possibly get into there and attack that yourself. Anyway, we'll get to that. First thing you need to do is take off whatever you need to get to your tank and drain your fuel tank. I have a pretty cool little, what do you call it, siphon set up here. So I've drained the tank mostly, and we'll get that off and I'll show you the fuel pump assembly. There's the bike stripped down, easy day. And here's the tank. I have flipped it upside down, and right here is the entire fuel pump assembly. This is what I was saying that you have to purchase. I'm gonna slide you into the holder here. I know this thing makes some noise and I apologize for that. Now, like I said, if you're riding somewhere with a fuel injected bike, you should at least know how to access your fuel pump. These things do fail, so for this one, it's these bolts all the way around here. It's 8mm, and I carry the tools to remove this. I don't obviously carry a impact driver, but I have a little T-handle and some sockets. And the first time I had a fuel pump issue on this, like I said, I did take this all out on the trail. The hardest part was keeping the fuel in the tank. I couldn't flip it upside down like this, obviously, but I did stand the tank kind of up, and I blocked off the fuel vent hose. Okay, now this thing is going to come out of here, and it kind of takes a little bit of finagling because there's a filter in here. So just gently remove it, and you have to move a few things around. There we go. And this is the entire assembly. Like I said, that they want to sell you for about $400 or $500. Now there's a big filter right here, and this is called the sock filter right there. And it looks like this is the exact same pump that I already had previously. Issues that I'm having is when I turn the key on, sometimes the pump works and sometimes it doesn't. As a preliminary, I'm just going to change this pump, but it could also be my fuel pump relay. All right, so the first thing you need to do is take a look at how your whole pump assembly is in here. Every one of these is a little bit different. This one has these little arms right here that hold the pump in. Now with this pump, that I put in here, this aftermarket pump, same as the one that I have, the body of it, it was not as, how should I explain this? This one is kind of more rounded, and you see these little clips right here? They weren't really holding on to it. The original one had kind of more of a right angle. This one's beveled over. So I noticed the pump would kind of slide out of the housing a little bit. So you can see I put a piece of wire around the entire thing to hold it. That's the kind of thing you may have to do if you put one of these aftermarket pumps on. And I also put a zip tie around the arms to hold them on there. And you can see here I have a regular hose clamp, whereas this is what you get from the factory, these crimped style ones. So you might have to cut those off and replace it with a regular hose clamp. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut this zip tie, I'm going to cut my little piece of safety wire, and we're going to slide this out. Everything slid right out after I cut that wire and that zip tie. And I already have disconnected the wiring on the top here. And I don't know how well you can see this, but on the top of this there is a negative and a positive. So remember, black is usually your ground, negative. Red is usually your positive. I have loosened up this hose clamp, so we're going to work that off. Then you take the caps off of your new pump. And then when you buy one of these, it's kind of universal, so it comes with a million little different connections in here. So if you would like to change out your sock filter here, just go through what's in here. It looks like it's probably going to be this one right here. And you have to kind of pry it off right in there. I usually use a flat bladed screwdriver. Pry that off of there, and it's going to wiggle out the side. And then wiggle the new one in and replace that. And I keep telling myself that I'm going to replace this fuel filter inside of here, but I still haven't. I suppose that's the next order of operations, is I need to research a good replacement for that, because as with the rest of this stuff, it's not listed separately. In this instance, I sort of misdirected you there. You don't have to just wiggle that filter in there. There is a Allen head screw right in there and right in there. This whole white plastic assembly came out, and that filter fit perfectly. So now all you have to do is slide in your new fuel pump. This is going to go into where the filter housing is, right down in there. You kind of can't mess it up, I would say, but hey, I've messed up stuff that people said I couldn't mess up. And now you can see what I was talking about with these plastic arms. See how they don't hold this thing in here very good? They're supposed to hold tightly across there, and that's why I think I had the zip tie initially, and then I did the safety wire. But I'm going to do both. I'm going to put a piece of wire around it and a zip tie to hold these arms in. Then we will hook these wires back up and put this fuel hose on here, and we'll reassemble this thing back into the tank. Now that we have her all back in one piece, we're going to work it back into here very carefully and reassemble it, and then we'll put it back on the bike and we'll do a little preliminary test on it. All we're really going to test for is to see if we can hear the fuel pump running. Now when you put these in, let me get you in here. The sock filter sometimes is a little bit of a pain. So just work it in there gently. And then I'm sure there's a torque spec on these bolts, so like I always say, RTFM, read the freaking manual, but for sure, do not over tighten these, especially on a dirt bike. 99 out of 100 times you probably have a plastic tank. This is a plastic tank with inserts in here. So I will not be using the impact driver to install these because it's too easy to over tighten them. And there's an O-ring seal around this base plate as well, so make sure you inspect that. And if you can think about it before you work on this job, order a new one. And here's a pro tip. If your old fuel pump was still working, like I said, mine was even working pretty decent, but it was intermittent. It's not a bad idea to hold on to it, especially if you ride away from camp more than 20 or 30 miles. You know, I don't take cross-country trips on this bike, but I've done 100-mile, 150-mile days on it, so I get a ways away from camp. So if I had to, I could always throw this pump in. At least it would be something to troubleshoot with. A real super pro tip would be just to buy another whole setup like this brand new. They're not expensive, $20. In fact, thank you for the reminder. I think that's exactly what I'll do. I was going to throw this in my bag, but I think I'll probably just throw that in the spare parts, and I'll just order another one to carry with me, because having a brand new one would be better than that. All right, we're installed. Let's get the tank installed, and let's see what she sounds like. Here we are installed. I've plugged in the wiring harness and the fuel line. So our initial test is quite simple. All we're going to do is turn on the key and then listen to see if we can hear the fuel pump pumping. I'll get you close, right in here. That was the key on, key off, key on again. There you go. Okay, I removed the air filter because it was dirty. I'm going to install that, and then we'll see if she starts up. Okay, let's do a little test run here. I don't have the seat on, but it should be okay. Fuel pump is pumping. And she started up. All right, not too bad of a job. Like I said, if you want to buy the OEM parts, you're going to pay. And if you want to buy the Chinese parts, well, maybe they'll last, maybe they won't. Like I said, the other one was working intermittently, but for the price, I'm okay with it. I make sure I have a spare. And like I said, I showed you on this bike, but a lot of them are the same quads, street bikes, very similar. You may have to disassemble the filter assembly a bit differently, obviously, but same basic idea. Okay, if you're liking my content, give me a thumbs up. Please leave a comment down below, and if you're not already a subscriber, please consider doing so. Thank you very much for watching. Get out there and find your adventure. Adios.